and welcome to the third and final day of the 2020 National Book Festival. My name is Naomi Coquion, and I work at the Library of Congress. I'm here with Deborah Hopkinson, whose featured book at the festival is Thanks to Frances Perkins, Fighter for Workers' Rights. I hope you've all had a chance to see her video here on the children's stage, but if not, do take a look after the session. Q&A will last about 30 minutes, and I'll be pulling your questions from the chat, so please add them here. And if you're a teacher or a family watching with children, please let us know that too, so Deborah can address your question appropriately. So with that, I'll give it just a second for folks to ask their questions, but I'm wondering first, Deborah, if you could just say a bit about why you wanted to write about Frances Perkins and what's a major lesson you want kids to take away from her life.
Well, I knew about Frances Perkins for a long time, and I wanted to first say welcome to everyone and thank you for coming. I'm sorry it's not in person, but I'm always interested in sort of forgotten people from history, or people that some people know, but we might not have learned about in schools. So I first encountered Frances Perkins writing about the Triangle Weights Company fire, and the fact that she was there in Washington Square that day. It really transformed her life, and I like to think about how events shape us and how change happens. So even though she was inspired after that moment to work for workers' rights, it took a lot of hard work to make that happen over a lifetime. So I'm really hoping to talk to everyone and read some of the questions.
Yep. So Kathleen Roman-Krepp asks, if Frances Perkins were alive today, what do you think she'd be fighting for?
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Frances Perkins really saw inequities in the system within, at the time, factories with women and children. And she also noticed details that we might not have thought about. For instance, when she took politician Al Smith into a tour of factories, she noticed that the workers didn't have backs on their chairs. So I think the kinds of things she'd be looking for is to make a more inclusive and just society.
Great. So let's see. There's another from
Naomi?
Oh, yep. There's another from Lori Enos.
I see. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yep. So Lori Enos asks, reading your book really inspired me. Are we there, Deborah? You guys folks can keep submitting their questions, and we'll get them as soon as we get Deborah back here.
Is anyone there?
Yep, we're here. Great. So we're glad to see you. So let me. No, that's fine. Let me string back to the question that popped up first. I was going to read you. It says, reading your book really inspired me. I already work informally on workers' rights within my own company, but do you have any ideas on how individuals can get more involved in workers' rights nationally at this time without making a whole career change?
Well, I'm not an expert in that area, but so I don't know that I'm qualified to do that. To say that, but I think certainly reading and staying active and joining local organizations. And then I think education. One of the reasons I wrote this book was that although, you know, we know about Social Security, I really wanted to write about both financial literacy and economic literacy. And I think that a lot of times those kinds of things, and this part of our history isn't taught in schools. So possibly doing a book group. Oh,
looks like we may have lost her again.
And just really
Okay. All right, folks. We'll try one more time, hopefully maybe just to get her on audio, if not video. So give it another couple minutes here. And again, if you haven't had a chance to see her festival video, you can do that here on the children's stage or at the YouTube channel as well, the library's YouTube channel.
Hello? Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Sorry. I have a cell phone, a phone, and a computer, and none of them work.
No problem. So Beth Olszewski asks, can you talk to us about some of the interesting things that you found about Frances Perkins in your research that you couldn't fit into the book?
Well, she obviously had a very, wait, I'm going to mute myself here. She had a very fascinating personal life with a lot of struggles. So as you can imagine, working with one child, her husband suffered from mental illness, and she also had a long-term later relationship with a woman. And it's hard to fit all those biographical details into a picture book, especially for younger readers. So I do try to put author notes in my books as a way of sort of filling out the story.
So, yep, here. So the question from Rocco Staino from the Empire State Center for the Book in New York. Did you visit the FDR Presidential Library in Hyde Park? And if so, what did you discover?
I didn't get a chance to go, Rocco. Thank you for that question. I wish that I had. And it's been very interesting for me since the pandemic to think about in-person research and how that will change. I was scheduled to go to Texas for the Texas TLA and Library Association Festival, and of course that got canceled, and I was doing some research there. So I did use oral history that had been done with Frances Perkins, and that was especially helpful to have, but I wish that I had gone to the FDR library. I have another book about someone else in the Roosevelt administration that Peachtree, who published thanks to Frances Perkins, also published, called Sweet Land of Liberty, and it's about Oscar Chapman. So I seem to have this interest in writing about middle managers or administrators, because I think in some ways, although we talk a lot about the major figures in history, a lot of the work gets done, on that ground level. And looking at this last week, as we think about Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life, we think about the details and the hard work that went into the changes that she helped to bring about.
So another question from Rocco. What is the most difficult thing about writing nonfiction books for children?
I think the most difficult thing is how do you have something about an adult who accomplished something as an adult and make that of interest to children. So for Thanks to Frances Perkins, what I tried to do was to put kids, oh, there's my dog barking, sorry, to put kids at the sort of the center. So it starts out, let's start with 2 math questions, especially for younger readers. So to try to make a connection or a way in to their lives. Another difficulty with this book was the idea that Frances Perkins was very much motivated by both being present as an eyewitness on March 25th, 1911, during the Triangle Waste Company fire, and also by Rose Schneiderman's speech in the memorial service, and presenting that in a way that wasn't too frightening to kids. So Christy Caldwell, the illustrator, I think did a fantastic job of anchoring that pivotal moment in American history. But it can be scary for young readers, which is why it's great to have picture books shared with young children by parents, educators, librarians, and teachers.
Great. Celeste Turner asks, are there any subjects children have written or asked you to write about?
Back in the before time when I did lots of school visits, the one question that they kept asking about was 9/11, which I think is very interesting, which other people have written about and I have not written about, but that seemed to be something that loomed heavily in people's young readers' minds. They also asked me if one third grader, I have written about the Titanic, and one third grader asked me if my book was based on the movie.
All right, so Adam Krebs asks, what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I think I might have said before we sort of lost the technical difficulties that I started writing about workers' rights and the Triangle Waste Company fire probably in around 1999, and I did a nonfiction book on Lower East Side and life in the tenements of New York. I grew up in Lowell, Massachusetts, and although I wasn't really interested in history as a kid, I think I later have looked back and saw that I was really living within that time of having those mills around me. So I've gotten interested in workers' rights and in unions, partly, I think, from my own experience. My mom worked in a factory for a while, and so the moment and also that idea that something that can happen to us as children or one event such as the Triangle Fire or the things that have happened this summer can really usher in sort of a sea change, and we hope that will take place also now as we look at inequities in our justice system.
Okay. Thank you. And I think we'll go a little bit past 1:30 just to folks' time, if that's okay.
Sorry.
No. Thank you for making the time. Sharon Soper.
I have a very old computer, everybody.
Not to worry, we're together now, so that's good. So Sharon Soper, thanks you for writing this and talks about her career in workers' rights, and then asks, what did you find to be the most challenging about publishing your book, and likewise the most rewarding?
I think here it was to try to make these sort of complex issues of interest to young readers. And the most rewarding, I think, is to see there is no way, I think, that we wanted this book to come out for the 85th anniversary of Social Security, but there was no way to predict years ago when I started writing it and when we were working on it, the kinds of debates that we would be having in our country this year about the kinds of things that Frances Perkins cared about. So unemployment, really a rock of security, poverty, and fairness. Those are the kinds of things that have been intensified and will continue to be as we go into this election season.
Yep. All right, we have two more questions. One is from Marilyn Mendenhall. What made you decide to become a writer?
Well, I loved to read as a child, and I wanted to be either a doctor or a writer. But I haven't been a full-time writer. So one of the things that I always tell young readers and people who want to write is you can still do what you want to do even if you can't do it full-time. So I worked up until 6 years ago most of my career in academic fundraising, and I always wrote on weekends or in evenings. So it's only been the last few years that I've been able to do it full-time. So it's really wonderful, although it feels like everything is changing again, because I used to spend all my spring visiting students all over the country, and I will miss that a lot. So I'm doing some zooming into history virtual author visits, but it's not the same as showing old historical photos to 200 young people in an auditorium and having them catch their breath with excitement at seeing someone at the top of the Empire State Building, or really delving into primary sources.
Yeah. Well, wonderful that you can be on Zoom, and hopefully some other classes who are watching here will be able to bring you there, to their classes as well. And someday we will be together again in person. But last question, also from Rocco at the Empire State Center for the Book. Which is your favorite illustration from the book and why?
So I think my favorite illustration is the last one. So, which you can't see if I hold up, but Christy Caldwell, we set the book up as sort of with an entry, and then at the end of it, to think about the impact of Social Security on people's lives throughout their lives, whether they receive benefits as a young person or closer to retirement. And there's a scene of people back in Washington Square, a diverse group of people with these little billboards that say, "Thanks, Frances," and some people are painting, and they're painting a picture of Frances in her ever-present hat, and people are on bicycles and walking dogs and playing music. And it's that sense of community and that society that she really helped really to envision and build. So that's my favorite illustration.
All right. Well, thank you, Deborah, and thank you to our audience all for sticking through it. It's really a lovely conversation, and to our audience, hope that you'll have a chance to check out Deborah Hopkinson's book.